Hello. I'm going to make some Gouda cheese today. Usually I make cheddars, and I've been making cheddars for about a year, and they've come out really, really well. So this is going to be my first time doing a Gouda. Gouda comes out of Holland, but now it's made all over the world. And I'm going to try to videotape it. So there you go. Okay. Well, I've got my 8 gallons of milk in my 2 pots. I put 4 gallons in this big pot and 4 gallons in this big pot to heat them up. And I'm going to heat them up to 90 degrees for the Gouda. The cheddar, you go to about 86 degrees. So, but I'm going to just heat them up really slowly to 90 degrees. And you can see the milk in here. Let me just check the temperature. I use this kind of cool thermometer here. It's a Coolner. And I'm at 68 degrees on this one, and I'm at 65. So I'm just going to go really, really slow with this to get it to it's 90 degrees. But you'll see here, I'm going to use this large. This is a large cheese mold. I use it same size for my cheddars, and this is going to be for the Gouda. All right, so I'm just continuing to stir the milk kind of slowly, periodically, and checking my temperature. I need to get to 90 to get to the next step. And I'm about 86 here. And here. I'm about 81. So a little bit longer. We'll bring that milk up to temperature to the 90 degrees. And then I'm going to put mesophilic culture in it for this Gouda. And you can get it on Amazon. I'm sure you've seen this on Amazon before if you're a cheese guy or cheese woman. Mesophilic culture. It's the same culture you used when you're making a cheddar. Someone asked me, what's the difference between a cheddar and a Gouda? So I did some reading. It's not like I know everything. I read a lot from this book here. Mastering cheese making. Or mastering artisan cheese making. And that totally the Bible of making cheeses. I mean, it just covers everything from aging cheeses, wrapping cheeses, all the different kinds of cultures, the renin, all the different steps to make all these different kinds of cheeses. Even like some of those French cheeses, the softer cheeses that have the white bloom on it. So it's just a great book. So anyways, someone asked me what the difference between a Gouda and a cheddar is, and the real difference is there's 2 of them. One, you take your curds and you're going to wash those curds with a Gouda. And so I've got a pot in the other kitchen in the house, and I'm boiling some distilled water, so about a gallon and a half. So after I get this milk up to temperature, and I add my mesophilic culture and my renin, split my curds in ways, I'm going to wash those curds. And what that does is reduces the lactic acid in the curds, and that will give you that nutty, sweeter flavor on your Goudas. And also a Gouda has got to be aged for at least 12 months in a really good cheese cave, whatever that looks like at your house. At my house, you guys have seen it. It's down into the house. I built a cheese cave. And so that's one difference on the Gouda compared to a cheddar. And then the other thing on a Gouda is, and it's going to be my first time doing it, and that is soaking the cheese wheel after I've pressed it in the press here. Yeah, press is over there. after I've pressed it in the press with about 40 pounds, 50 pounds overnight, I'll take that out of the press, and we'll film all this if and I'm going to put it in a brine solution for about 12 hours, 24 hours. That's the difference with a Gouda as opposed to a cheddar, because a cheddar, you add the salt in the curds while you've got the curds going. So those two are the two big differences between a Gouda and a cheddar, and the making process. But they both have mesophilic culture in it. And you can read all about that. And you can get this on Amazon. So let me just check my temperatures one more time. Here, let me show so you can see what I'm doing. And I'm at 87 here. And about 84 here. So a little bit longer, get to 90, and then we'll add our mesophilic culture. All right. Okay, I'm going to check it again. I'm almost there. There being 90 degrees. Almost there. Okay, I'm at 90 here. So just a little bit longer here for this one here. The smaller pot over here tends to warm up a little bit faster than my bigger pot. I got both these pots on Amazon. I think this is kind of a more of a beer brewing, people who brew beer at home. That's kind of this kind of a pot, and you can see that it's got a temperature gauge here, and then also a valve. But it's perfect for making cheeses because I'm able to drain the whey out, and I have a bigger sink right here that I can just drain the whey right into the sink by the stove. So if you're looking for good pots, right there on Amazon. You can get everything on Amazon. I'm just going to turn this down just a little bit. I had it on medium. I'm just going to turn it down to the lower end. So it's an electric stove. I hope to get a gas stove, a Blue Star, next year. And we'll put a nice Blue Star here, and that'll be a lot more conducive to making some good cheese, maybe. So let's see if we can get this a little bit better. But I think you can see what you need to see. Okay, let me just check this milk right here one more time. My God, I'm almost there. And I'm 89.4. $89.8. You know, I'm gonna call it good. So I've got that down a little bit lower so it doesn't get too hot. I would think that I bet this pot gets hotter than this pot because it's in the corner. It's got the refrigerator and it's kind of got a lot of heat going on here. So I bet you that's what it is. But anyways, let's put the mesophilic culture in. I've already told you about that, what it is. What I will tell you is it says for you to sprinkle it on the top. And I'll do that. One packet, one packet. In this larger packet, there is multiples of these packets. So one of these packets does 4 gallons of milk, between 2 and 4 gallons of milk. It says it on the packet that it can do from the 2 gallons up to the 4 gallons. And each one of these pots is 4 gallons. So I'm just going to take this methylphenol culture and sprinkle it in here, just over the top of the milk. And we're going to wait for about 5 minutes for that mesophilic culture, which is a dry powder, to rehydrate on the top of the milk. So we'll wait a few minutes. I'll be right back. So it's been a few minutes and the mesophilic culture has just been sitting on the top of the milk. So I'm going to stir it in really kind of slowly, kind of up and down. You see how I'm kind of doing that? Just kind of really slowly stirring that in the milk, that mesophilic culture. Okay. And I'm going to do this other pot. Right. Kind of slow, up and down, so really incorporating all of that mesophilic culture throughout the milk. Okay, I want to check the temperature of that back one because it gets a little warmer. I don't want it to go over 90. Yeah, see, it's a little higher, so just going to shut that heat off for now. I'm not going to freak out. I'm not going to freak out because this is now 91.3. I just shut it off a little bit, and it'll kind of, and I'll keep the cover off of it to help it cool down a little bit, kind of, because it needs to be around 90. Now that the mesophilic culture is in both of these pots, we're going to let it sit and what we call ripen for about an hour and 15 minutes. So Alexa, set an hour and 15-minute timer.
1 hour and 15 minutes, starting now.
She's amazing. So I'm just going to let it sit for about the hour and 15 minutes and let that mesothelial culture get out through all the milk and do its magic. And then we'll be right back. All right. Well, let me... Hey everyone, now we're going to do the rennet, and I've got animal rennet. Here you go. Of course, where did I get it from? Amazon. You can get everything on Amazon. So this is animal rennet. There's 2 different kinds of rennet. There's vegetable rennet and then there's animal rennet. Animal rennet comes from the lining of the cow's stomach, and that's what we're going to use today for this Gouda. So let's get a closer look down here what I'm doing here. There you go. Okay. So I'm going to use some distilled water I got from the local grocery store. And I'm going to put a little of this distilled water in my measuring cup. This is a quarter. Oh, let me throw some of that out. That's a quarter cup of distilled water. And we're going to put 2 tablespoons of animal rennet in each one of these pots. A little bit more, whatever. Okay. That's 1. Animal rennet. Let's go over here to the pots. And we'll do this one first. The mesothelial culture has been sitting for about an hour and 15 minutes, give or take 10 minutes here and there. I'm going to just stir it up a little bit. Not mixing, just kind of stirring. And then I'm going going to ladle this rennet in. Okay? And I'm going to stir that in a little bit. I'm not whisking it up. I'm just kind of stirring it really slowly, lifting it up and down, just so it, kind of incorporates that rennet a little bit. 2 tablespoons of rennet and 4 gallons of milk in this pot. I'm sorry, I said tablespoons, I meant teaspoons. Teaspoons. 2 teaspoons. 2 teaspoons of rennet in that distilled water. About a 1/4 cup. I'll put the cover on. I'm gonna do my next one, my next pot. So I got 2 pots here, right? I got 2 pots here, and I want to do probably a total of 4 teaspoons of rennet. So there's a 1/4 cup of distilled water. I left enough room to get my rennet in, my animal rennet in. Teaspoons. That's 1, 2, 1 for Jesus. All right, no big deal. I'm gonna stir this around a little bit. Okay, that's 2 teaspoons of animal rennet in some distilled water. About a 1/4 cup, but I didn't fill the 1/4 cup all the way up. Okay, let's go back to the milk. I'm gonna do this back pot here. And I'm gonna stir it around very gently. Make sure that's all incorporated really well in that milk. And I'm going to take the temperature of the milk just because we want to keep it at 90 degrees. And we're at 90. We're a little higher than 90. We'll just let it chill out. We don't have any temperature on it really. That's for that one. Let me get this one here. Just want to get the temperature of this one. Yeah, and we're way too high here. So 94. So I'm going to let it cool down a little bit and let that animal rennet sit. So this animal rennet will sit in the milk for about an hour and a half for each pot. So total about an hour and a half. Then I'll come back and I'll see that we've got a clean break and that the whey has separated from the curds. And then we'll just kind of go from there. So that's our next step. We're going to wait for another hour and a half. Okay. Here we go. I'm going to click this little button. Okay, so the rennet has been in here for about an hour and a half, and so we're going to check to see if we got a clean break. And I can already see that we do. And let's get a little closer just so you can see. See, you definitely can see the whey on the sides. But let me get, this is a long knife, and I'm just gonna, let's see if I can get this right. And that's a beautiful. And about this guy here. And that's beautiful. So our rennet has done its job. So what we're going to do now is definitely the biggest part of making cheese, and that's cutting the curds, and then bringing the temperature up to about 100 degrees, and cooking those curds. We're going to cut the curds, kind of stages. We're going to cut the curds. We're going to let them sit for 10 minutes. Then we're going to bring the temperature up to 100 degrees and kind of cook them, and kind of cut the curds so they're smaller. And you'll see that the curds will shrink a little bit in time. So we're going to do this very, very slowly from the 80 degrees it's at to 100 degrees. And it's constant stirring, or just kind of working your curds so they don't stick together or knit together in the pot. So I'm going to just use my long spatula, and I'm going to cut the curds. And make sure that you can see this. Yeah, let me get this over here. So there you go. So I'm just making 1-inch cuts horizontally. And then I'm going to cut the other way. Make sure that you can see. And let me put my light on here so you can see a little better. So here you go. I'm going to do this other pot. Cut my curd. I'm going to cut it the other way. So the difficult part of cutting the curds like this is we've cut them this way, and then we've cut them this way, but now we have to cut them this way in the pot, you know, because the curd is pretty long. It's about three inches long. So I'm going to use this thing here, and I'm going to kind of go like this and cut the curd very slowly. Cut the curd. I'm going to do the other one. So I'm going to let this curd set for about 10 minutes because we've cut the curd, and I want you to think about the sides of the curds that we just cut. You want to let them sit and heal a little bit so they get a skin on all three of those sides. So we're going to let them sit for about 10 minutes, and then we're going to bring this temperature up to about 100 degrees and kind of stir the curds really slowly, periodically, and cut the larger curds into a smaller curd, kind of let them rest and bring them up in temperature. And this should take about a half hour, 45 minutes to do this. So this is what we're going to do next. So what I'm doing now, let me get rid of that. So what I'm doing now is I'm bringing the curd up really slowly, and I'm kind of cutting any of the bigger curds. And I'm doing this as gently as possible. Because you want your curds to be you want your curds to be smaller, right? Half an inch. And as they cook down, they're going to shrink. So I'm just bringing them up really slowly, and there's some bigger curds. And I've got the temperature on, I'm bringing it to 100. And I'm just really gently cutting some of these bigger curds. You know, when they make the cheese in a factory, they got these big machines that kind of do this in large scales. Probably much easier. But for us, you just have to kind of do it real slow and gentle. You don't want to be stirring your curds around really fast, because that will bust them up. They're really gentle. Gentle, like a relationship. I'm just saying. So, here we go. And I'm just going to continue to do this, bringing my temperature up to 100 degrees and stirring my curds occasionally, really gently, bringing them up from the bottom, cutting any that need to be cut. And as it gets warmer, the curds are going to shrink a little bit, and that's what we're going to do. So we're going to do this over a period of time, half hour, 45 minutes, whatever it takes, and we're going to get this going. But let's see what the temperature is here now, actually. So I'm at 93 here, and I'm at 90 here. But you don't want to get to 100 really fast. You want to go really slow. Everything is slow in cheese making, and enjoy the process. I mean, this video is not very long because I splice it together, but it takes about 4 to 5 hours to make some really good cheese. I've been doing this since 12 o'clock, and it's 4 o'clock now. I won't be done until about 6. So have a cigar, vodka and cranberry, whatever it takes, and just enjoy the process. So we'll continue cooking my curds, bring them up to 100 degrees, and make cutting the larger ones as needed. We'll see you on the other side. All right, so the curds have been come up to about 100 degrees, and I've been stirring them occasionally, and just kind of cutting any larger curd. Like here's some curds, and I'm just kind of cutting them, you know, making sure they don't mat. So I just kind of working them. You know, ain't nothing perfect. So there's definitely, the curds could be smaller, but they're not. And, you know, I'm shaking them loose here so they fall off, because you don't want them to mat or knit together while they're in this pot here. So, and you'll see that they'll, as they're cooking down, they'll be a bit more pliable. And you just kind of want to cut them in little pieces and let them sit for a little while. Keep the temperature on them. You know, cook them down. Just working your curds. Like working your nerves. So that's what we're doing here. We're just kind of... And while I've been doing this, I have a pot on the inside of the house, the inside kitchen, on the stove, of about 2 gallons of distilled water. So it's water that doesn't have any chlorine in it. And I'm bringing that up to a temperature of about 100 degrees. And I'm going to use that distilled water to rinse the curds. We're going to wash the curds. That's the big difference in Gouda as opposed to cheddar. We're going to wash our curds. And I'll show you that process here in a little bit after my curds are kind of cooked down. I think I got a little bit more way to go. And you know, the other way you can see, first of all, because I've been doing it a while, I can see, but you know, that curd's too big. And it just needs to be cooked down. So, gonna cook it a little bit more, keep the temperature on 100 degrees, and continue to work my curds until they get a little bit small, about the size of your thumbnail, maybe a little bigger. And that'll take, for me, in this environment, maybe another 30 minutes or so. And while that's going, I've got my distilled water warming up so I can get to the next step, which is washing the curds. Now, what is that? I'm going to take some of this whey out, 2 quarts, whatever, 1.5 quarts, 2 quarts, 3 quarts, and I'm going to replace it with fresh water, or the distilled water that I've got at 100 degrees. And then I'm going to cook my curds a little bit, and then I'm going to take another quart or 2 out of whey, or the liquid, and add another 2 or 3 quarts of water into my pots. And you know, I'm taking the old out and putting the new in, and I'm washing. That's kind of what we call washing the curds. So I'm going to do that 3 times, but we're not there yet, because I've got to continue to cook down my curds a little bit more and get them where they're a little bit more pliable and smaller. So there you go. Okay, so I'm going to take the whey, some of the whey, out of each one of these pots, about a couple of quarts worth. Just throw it down the drain. You could keep this whey. You could keep this whey and make ricotta cheese out of it. I've not done that yet. I'm just going to throw it down the drain. So my temperature got a little high, about 106. It's a little too high. So I've shut all the heat off on all of it, and we'll try to cool this down with putting some of this distilled water in it. So I'm just taking the whey out, you know, about 2 quarts, whatever, and then replace it with this distilled water. You just want to keep your temperature above 100 degrees. So what I'm using is my slotted spoon that I got from Amazon. I mean, where else would you get it from? Amazon. And then a nice, clean, sterile glass measuring cup. And I'm just pushing the whey down and grabbing the curds down and grabbing the water, the whey. So I'm going to do this. I'm sure there's an exact measurement that you can do. I ain't doing it. I'm just going to take the whey out and replace it with water, or the distilled water. Keep it at 100 degrees. If you're looking for perfection, it's definitely not here. It's definitely not. So, and again, by taking the whey out and replacing it with the distilled water, what you're doing is you're decreasing the lactic acid in the curds. Lactic acid in the curds, and that's going to give that cheese, our Gouda cheese, that delicious sweet nutty flavor. So I've taken some whey out. I'm going to replace it with some distilled water. Now I have some distilled water that I brought to 100 degrees, but it got a little too hot for me on me. So I'm just using it straight from the bottle. Since this is already warm, this distilled water will help cool these curds down a little bit to 100 degrees, right? So let me just take my temperature. I'm looking for 100 degrees, and I'm there, right? So just gonna keep it going. So I'm gonna let these curds rest a little bit as I stir them. I'm gonna let them rest a little in this, you know, there's still whey in here, right? I didn't take it all out, but I decreased the whey and replaced it with the distilled water. Okay, and you just want to keep it at 100 degrees. So I'm at 101 here, and I'm at 99.8. So I'm close. You know, I'm too old to be worried about if it's absolutely exact to perfection. So we'll just continue to work this, and I'm going to do this 3 different times. I'm going to let this sit for another 10 minutes, and then I'm going to take out some of the whey or the fluid, and replace it with 100 degrees at least distilled water, and then I'm going to do that 3 different times. And that's what you call washing your curds for your Gouda cheese. So I'll see you on the other side. This is going to take a while. Okay, so I've rinsed the curds about 4 times with the distilled water, changing out and everything. So now I'm going to put it in this colander that I've lined with that cheesecloth. Here, everybody say hi to my nephew. He was dying to get on camera.
Hey!
There you go. So, so I'm just going to pour these curds right in here. We'll do it right now, okay? Right into the colander. So the cheesecloth is gonna catch all these curds. Hope the camera's catching this. And all them little curds in there. So now I'm going to put this in the press. I'm going to bring it over here and put it in the press. And we'll do that now. Have to remove Chaz's paraphernalia. I'm just saying, it's paraphernalia. Okay. Okay, so this is the top of that that mold, that cheese mold, and again, it's the large cheese mold that I'm using. All right, I'm using the large cheese mold here. So I'm gonna take this cheesecloth and I'm gonna run it over the side here of it like this. Try to get as many folds out as possible, so you don't have lines and stuff in your cheese. I'm gonna take this follower and put it right on top here. Okay. And I'm gonna bring it over to my cheese press. See if I can do this without, so you guys can see. Here's the cheese press. Where did I get it? Amazon. So, let's see. Level. So the top of your cheese is level. Because if it's crooked, the top of your cheese is going to be crooked. So, just going. Still not happy with it. I'm going to call that good. And I'm going to put 40 pounds of weight on it, actually 30 pounds of weight on it for about an hour. So here is 25 pounds. And I'm going to put another 5 pounds on it. And here's another 5 pounds. So there you go. So a 5 pound weight and a 25 pound weight. I'll let it sit there for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then I'm going to redress it. And what that means is to take the weight off. I'm going to take it out of the mold. I'm going to unwrap it, and then I'm going to redress it with the same cheesecloth, put it back in the mold, and I'm going to put 40 or 50 pounds of weight on it and let it stay there all night long for about 8 to 12 hours. And then tomorrow morning, we'll go to the next step. So we'll see you tomorrow morning. Okay, so we're at the last stage here. I'm going to, it's been sitting in the press with about 30 pounds of weight on it. So I'm going to take it out. I'm going to, what's called redress the cheese. And you'll see that I'm going to take it out of the mold, take the cheesecloth off, flip it, redress it with the same cheesecloth, put it back in the mold, and then I'll put 50 pounds of weight on it. And it will stay there for the rest of the night. It's about 7 o'clock, so tomorrow morning, 12 hours later, 12, 13 hours later, whatever, I'll take it out of that, and then I'll put it in the salt, in the brine. So, and I just got these weights from one of those athletic stores where all those healthy people go and fly weights to lift. I ain't lifting. I'm using it to make cheese. Okay, so the follower, because of air, sometimes it's difficult to get out, but so I'm going to be kind of gentle. That's not good at all. Yep. So let me get this back in. So I just kind of flipped it. I didn't necessarily redress it because it wasn't really ready to be redressed. So I'm just going to put this weights back on. There's a lot of weight on here. What do we got? 25, 35, 45, 50. 50 pounds of weight. I'm going to keep it on for at least 12 hours. And then tomorrow morning we'll take it out, see what it looks like. Okay? See you tomorrow morning. Hey everyone. So it's a couple days from when we started our Gouda cheese, and there was a step that I did not cover in this video because I'm just playing around, and that is first of all I took our cheese out of the press that we had the next morning, and I unwrapped it, and I'm going to show you how the muslin wrap or the cheesecloth kind of stuck to the cheese a little bit. So and it's probably because I did not soak that cheesecloth in the whey as I was draining the cheese. And I really should have done that. I just soaked it in the water that we were rinsing the cheese with. So I think because of that, the cheesecloth stuck to the cheese a little bit, and you'll see it's got some areas, a lot of areas that are got cheese that fell off and stuff. But as if anyone knows me, there's nothing perfect for me in my life, and that cheese is not perfect in terms of what it looks like. But in 12 months, being in that cheese cave, oh my God, it's going to be delicious. So with that said, I took it out, unwrapped it, and I put it in a stainless steel pot filled with 1 gallon of distilled water. Just room temperature, whatever. And then I put 4 cups of non-iodine salt in it, just from the store. Just non-iodine salt. I put 4 cups of that in that 4 gallons of water in a stainless steel pot. And I stirred that all around really good. And then I put my Gouda cheese in that pot and turned it a few times, and then sprinkled some salt on the very top, because that Gouda cheese was going to float to the top. And I covered it with aluminum foil, put it on the counter, went and had some cocktails. And then I kind of actually let it sit for about 10 hours in that brine. And I may have turned it a couple of times. I wasn't obsessed about it. And if I did turn it a couple of times, I put some salt on the top that was floating to the top and recovered it. And then about 10 hours later, I took it out of that brine and I put it on a mat. This is just, this is the mats that I use. You can buy your plastic mats from the cheese company for $10 a mat or whatever. This is just bamboo sushi mats that I get from Amazon. Again, Amazon, get everything you want from Amazon. So I took it out and I put it on my bamboo mat, and I let it dry for about 3 days on the counter, in the kitchen, on the counter. And then I turned it over every other day or every day. Sometimes multiple times a day, patted it dry, because you'll see it'll weep a little bit in terms of some sweat, I guess you would call it, from that cheese. And then it is now the 3rd day, and it is completely dry. So now, because if it's a Gouda, I am going to wax it. And I use this wax, and you guys can guess where I got it from. Amazon. Looks like this out of the box. It's a cheese wax, okay? And then I am going to put it in a pot like this. I already have some cheese wax melted in there, but I'm going to melt this entire other one in that pot. And this is just a pot that I stole, and my husband was like, "Oh my God, you stole that pot from the house," because it was one of his favorite pots, I guess. Whatever. And I keep it under the counter. with a aluminum foil on it with the wax that I have not used in it. In terms of maybe I'll melt this entire wax down. There'll still be some wax in it once I wax this cheese. So that's what I'm going to do next. As soon as this wax melts, and I'm putting it on slow, everything's slow, right? So it's on slow, or low. I'm sorry. I have an electric oven here, so it's on number 3, and I'm just going to melt that cheese. I'm going to melt that wax down, and once it's done, I'm going to wax that cheese, and I'll show you how we'll do it. We'll go back on camera, but I'm going to do at least three different layers of this wax on that cheese. So I'm going to wax it once, and then I'm going to wax it again, and after it dries, I'll wax it again. And it won't take long at all. And then I'm going to get a little piece of paper and write that it is a Gouda and the date that I have made it, effective 3 days ago. And I'm going to wax that piece of paper on that top layer of wax on that cheese, and so when we put it in the cheese cave, because it's going to be there for about a year, we'll be able to know when we made it and what it is. So I'll see you on the other side of this video once my wax is all melted, and we'll start the process of waxing this cheese. Okay, cool. Okay, so here we go. Our wax is pretty much all melted down. I've kept it on low and just kind of done it slowly. And I got maybe about an inch or so of wax in this pot, because I put 2.5 of those packages of wax in there. So let me get I'm gonna put just a piece of cardboard there, because this is how I'm gonna melt the cheese and put it there. Melt the wax, put it on the cheese and kind of put it there, so we don't get too much mess around. But I wanted to show you the cheese. Look at the cheese really close. See it's got these, indentations and missing pieces of cheese, and it's because my cheesecloth, like I said, stuck to it. So when I was pulling the cheesecloth off, it ripped some of the cheeses off. It's got some holes in it. So it's not as perfect as my cheddars that usually come out, but this is my first Gouda. It's going to be just fine, because I'm going to cover it in this beautiful red wax. And it's like life, right? We all have some holes in us, and we all know those folks that are walking around outside, and they look fantastically perfect, all dressed up, and they don't look like I do with the stupid, ridiculous hat and, all this. They look perfect. But underneath all of that facade, they've got holes. So this cheese is exactly like that. So we're going to cover it up with some wax, and here we go. So I'm just going to dip it in. Pull it out a little bit. Turn it. I'm just turning it. Can you see that? Yeah, you can see that. And I'm pulling it out. Now, of course, I've washed my hands a ton of times, right? Because you don't want to have dirty hands while you're touching your cheese, because you'll get that black mold, and you'll be able to see your fingerprints with the black mold on your cheese. So I wash my hands a lot. So I'm just kind of turning this around, taking it out. It's going to be real cool. I think it's going to turn out fabulous. I just kind of take it out a little bit, let it kind of dry. This wax dries really, really fast. It's wax specifically for cheese. I'm gonna do it some more. I'm just kind of rolling it around the wax. Now, you see I don't have the middle done yet. I'm going to do that next. I'm going to let this just sit up here and let the wax set up a little bit so I can touch it a little bit more. I'm going to do another thing around this edges here. And so I'm just going to continue to do this until the whole thing is waxed, and it's going to be beautiful. Take it off that heat. I'm going to shut my heat off a little bit. So, the cheese is waxed. It is definitely a messy process, and you can see that all over my stove. Thank God we have an outside kitchen here in the garage that I do this in, because my family would not like me doing this in the house. But the cheese is waxed. I've got multiple layers of wax on this cheese, and I made a little card, labeled it a Gouda with the date of the 21st of December on it of this year. So we'll know this time next year we're going to have some great Gouda, and I could actually kind of divide this up next year and vacuum pack it and give some of this Gouda away for Christmas gifts for next year. So kind of cool, but definitely a messy process. I'll see if I can come up with a better process for myself. But I'll clean this up, and I'll take another quick video down in the cheese cave once I put this Gouda down there, so you can see our absolute finished product. It's been a lot of fun doing this, and I look forward to doing another video on another Gouda, and maybe we can do it less messy. But life is messy. I mean, at least my life is. So this is a great example of just kind of getting through it and having some fun, and I've loved it. I'll see you in the cheese cave. Hey everyone, I'm down here in the cheese cave. See? Cheese cave. Actually, let's pan down here a little bit. I'm down here. Right, there you go. And so you can see I've made some artisan cheeses that I'm hanging. I might try one of them today. But let's get to our Gouda. All right, let me fix my shirt here so I don't look ridiculous. So let's get to our Gouda. Let's see if we can pan over to our Gouda. And there it is. So here's our Gouda. I think that we did a good job. It'll sit here in the cheese cave now for 12 months at least. And then we'll cut into it. Hopefully it'll be Christmas next year around this time, 24. We'll cut into it, we'll taste it, maybe grab some delicious wine that we have up there in the wine cellar, and have some great cheese. It was so much fun making it. It's not perfect, neither am I, but our other cheeses are looking good too. Look at this cheese that me and my sister-in-law made, Sandra, and it is really looking great. It's got some blue mold on it. It's our cheddar from back in October. So it's got about 3 months in it, so that'll be amazing. And then up top here, we've got some more that we made the last couple of months, which should be really, really cool as well. So those top two cheddars will be here for another 4 months, 4 or 5 months. Soon we'll be making some goat cheese. The goats are out there in the back area. They're gonna have their babies here next month, and so we'll be milking them within about 2 months. So that'll be really, really cool, and we'll be making some goat cheese. So thanks everyone, and it was a blast.
See you later.